Hello everyone, welcome to Clear Perspective. I'm Serene. Today I would like to discuss a topic that we have mentioned many times in our show, the American totalitarian government. This topic is still probably unfamiliar to Americans because the majority of us still believe the United States is a model of a democratic country. This is especially so for moderate leftists. But this topic is very familiar to many people who have come from China, like me, especially for those who have witnessed the totalitarian system under the Chinese Communist Party. Will a totalitarian society really emerge in the United States? Will Americans who have enjoyed freedom for more than 200 years be so easily captured by totalitarianism? The conservatives may answer yes. But what is surprising is that even some leftists are beginning to realize this. On February 22nd, American author Naomi Wolf was interviewed by Tucker Carlson. She made it very clear that under the Biden administration, we are turning into a version of totalitarian states before everyone's eyes. And I really hope we wake up quickly. That's a bit of a shocking statement, isn't it? And Naomi Wolf is a veteran leftist and a hardcore Democrat for more than 30 years. She served as an advisor to former President Bill Clinton in 1996 and is a well-known feminist. In this interview, Wolf made several key points that can be described as shocking, but also enlightening. First, Wolf urged,
under the guise of a real medical pandemic, we're really moving into a coup situation, a police state situation, and that's not a partisan thing. That, as you say, that transcends everything you and I might agree or disagree on.
Right.
That should bring together left and right to protect our Constitution.
Wolf also emphasized to Carlson that this has nothing to do with partisan differences.
The state has now crushed businesses, kept us from gathering in free assembly to worship, as the First Amendment provides, is invading our bodies, as you mentioned, which is a violation of the Fourth Amendment, is restricting movement, fining us here in New York State. I could be fined $15,000 a day, which is a complete violation of the First Amendment.
Wolf also said she interviewed American citizens from all walks of life who were horrified because
autocratic tyrants at the state and now the national level are creating a kind of merger of corporate power and government power, which is really characteristic of Italian fascism in the 20s.
That was a very strong statement, and it doesn't sound like it's coming from a leftist. In fact, back on November 8th of last year, shortly after the election day, Wolf tweeted that she would never have voted for Biden if she had known Biden supported the lockdown. Wolf wrote the book, The End of America, Letter of Warning to a Young Patriot. This book describes in 10 steps how dictators will end democracy in America. She concluded in the interview that the United States is moving towards the 10th step, subvert the rule of law. So what are the previous 9 steps? First, invoke a terrifying internal and external enemy. Convince people that they are being threatened in order to have them willingly place restrictions on their own freedom in order to stay safe. Second, create secret prisons where torture takes place. Third, develop a thug caste or a paramilitary force that cannot be prosecuted and is not answerable to citizens. Fourth, set up an internal surveillance system. Encourage people to denounce others and spy on others. Fifth, harass citizens groups. Investigate and infiltrate these groups to continue intimidating the masses. The sixth, engage in arbitrary detention and release. Seventh, target key individuals, threaten academics and artists if they aren't in line with your beliefs. Academia is where the most activism comes from, so by forcing the teachers to be in line, there will be no activism. Eighth, control the press. Spreading disinformation is crucial as freedom of information is the foundation of democracies. Eventually, all narratives will be repeating the disinformation, and it will become very difficult to discern between real and fake. At this point, when citizens are no longer able to spot fake news, they will slowly give up their demand for accountability by the government. Nice. Dissent equals treason. Label any opinion that opposes yours as enemies of the people and the criticism as espionage or conspiracy theories. This way, anyone who expresses opposition to the current narrative can be silenced through arrest or execution as they are a traitor. Finally, step 10, subvert the rule of law. I was a little surprised by these 10 steps because we can see clearly these steps being implemented in the United States. For example, the first step is to invoke a terrifying internal and external enemy. The radical left has created two enemies, Donald Trump and the exaggerated pandemic. And they have used these to successfully destroy the foundation of American freedom and the cornerstone of democracy. As for the step to develop a thug caste, people may think of Antifa and the BLM, which both create chaos with violence. Then a blacklisting or surveillance system is set up for important individuals. What we've seen is not only limited to Trump and a few people around him. Many of his supporters have been suppressed in their work and daily lives. Some were even reported by their family members. Cancel culture is a typical example. The term may sound high class, however, it is a reflection of the totalitarian system's persecution of dissenters. America has already achieved step 8, control the press. The entire affair on Hunter Biden's hard drive has clearly demonstrated this. And of course, the joint effort by the mainstream media outlets and the social media to cover up the 2020 election irregularities. It was at that time when many people were shocked to find that so many mainstream media outlets actually united in blocking the truth. I believe that many Americans have realized that this is the beginning of speech censorship, including those on the left. Step 9, dissent is treason. This is called inciting subversion of state power by the CCP, and it is used quite often in China against human rights activists. It is no longer strange in America now. Trump's second impeachment has shown all Americans how Trump, as president, can be accused of inciting subversion for telling the truth of the election, as well as how Trump's 75 million supporters can instantly be accused of being domestic terrorists. The final step is to subvert the rule of law. Wolf didn't mention the Supreme Court's recent decisions. However, Justice Thomas described them as inexplicable. And the Biden administration used the epidemic as an excuse to deny people their property rights, their right to assemble and worship, as well as other rights guaranteed by the Constitution. They all served to destroy the American legal system. The judiciary is no longer independent, but rather serves the left's need for political correctness. The political reality in America has evolved and distorted to such a state that even a leftist like Wolf had sensed something wrong and had publicly opposed it. I think this highlights that the Biden administration's far-left agenda is developing too fast, that even the average leftist cannot stand it. Some people may say that these phenomena Wolf mentioned do exist, but they are only special practices during the pandemic. And they would be rather extreme to say that the entire United States is a totalitarian system. It is true that the US is not totalitarian for the time being, but it is just one step away. Once the people have become accustomed to Biden's far-left agenda, the transition of America into a totalitarian state could be achieved overnight. Wolf's 10 steps remind me of a very famous experiment conducted by Ron Jones, a California high school history teacher, called The Third Wave. The story was later adapted into a movie in 2008 called The Wave. This experiment took place in 1967 when leftist ideologies in America were far less prevalent than they are today. Jones' experiment was conducted with a group of high school students in his class, and the purpose of the experiment was to teach the students what fascism was. The experiment shocked American society at that time. It took Jones only 5 days to organize and train a group of free-spirited, native-born American high school students into a fanatical group, similar to Nazis or the Red Guard from the Cultural Revolution in China. The whole experiment started with a game. Jones started with a few political slogans: strength through discipline, strength through community, strength through action. This sounds like the well-known communist saying, unity is strength, right? On the first day, Jones started with simple rules. He enforced proper seating and trained the students until they were able to move to their seats and sit properly in less than 30 seconds. The next day, he made up a greeting similar to the Nazi salute and ordered the students to salute each other this way even outside of the class. He named the movement the Third Wave. On the third day, Jones assigned 3 students to report deviant behaviors, but was surprised that around 20 students made such reports. Half of the class considered it their duty to observe and report on their classmates. By the end of the day, the movement expanded from initial 30 students to over 200 participants. On the fourth day, Jones announced that this movement was a part of a nationwide movement to promote political change in the country, and they are the selected members for this movement. On the next day, a presidential candidate of the Third Wave would publicly announce its existence. At this point, no one thought that it was a game anymore. All those who questioned the Third Wave were ostracized and even treated violently. On the fifth day, over 200 students gathered in the school hall. After Jones gave a short speech, all 200 students stood up and did a special salute. After a few minutes of waiting, Jones announced that they had been a part of an experiment in fascism. He said, quote, "You have been used, manipulated, shoved by your own desires into the place you now find yourself. You are no better or worse than the German Nazis we have been studying." In the experiment, we see several common techniques of totalitarian regimes: unifying thought and action, destroying people's trust of each other with informal systems, collectively attacking criticizers to instill fear in others. These are just a few things we see today from the far left. And Jones built his own totalitarian society in just 5 days. Are Wolf's claims that far-fetched when we compare them to things that are happening in America today? How far are we really from a truly totalitarian society? That's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.